Hey developers, imagine that you want to share a component, a Vue component with anyone out there, even if they're using React or Angular. Well, you can actually do that with something called web components. As of Vue.3.2, there is a way to create web components using Vue 3, and I'm going to show you how you can do that step by step. So today we're going to create a crypto price tracker that shows the price of a number of different cryptocurrencies in USD. You're also going to be able to change the look and feel of it. We're going to use some slots. We're also going to be using a way to put in your own currencies that you want to check. So make sure you stay all the way to the end and you can learn all about this. Hey, and before we get started, I just want to have a quick note that I do offer one-on-one coaching and help if you need help with Vue.js or React or Angular. I put a link in the description below, so if you want to check that out, go ahead. Yeah, let's go ahead and create this component and see how it goes. Here is our application that we're going to work with today. I have VS Code open. I have a brand new Vite app, and if you're wondering how to start, just go to the Getting Started guide. You do an npm init vue at latest, and I chose yes for TypeScript and pretty much left everything else the default. So now I just put hello world in here. I deleted a couple of the components that come with the starter template just so we could start off fresh. So all I have really is an empty app view. Now we're going to split this up into a couple different sections, and at any time, feel free to check the description of this video. There will be timestamps so you can jump around if you're not interested in different parts. Also, this is going to be somewhat similar to the last video I did on creating a Vue plugin. So if you like, check that video out as well. It'll be up here, and you can click at the top of the screen. But for this video, we want to start with we're going to create the component. And so this is going to be sort of a crypto price checker, USD price checker to see the current prices of Bitcoin. It's also going to automatically update. And the idea is you would take this component, you put it on any website. It doesn't have to be Vue. It could be an Angular app, a React app, or a plain, could be WordPress app. And then this will just always run in the background. It'll show you the different amounts. It'll have a couple of features with this component. You should be able to pass in some styles. So we'll be able to pass in the background. You'll also be able to pass in your own conversion that you're looking for. So if you're looking for Solana or Ethereum conversion, you can look at that too. So you can pass in own crypto values. So this is all going to be step one that we're going to do here in our app, is just create the component, really, this one right here. And then the second step we're going to do is we're going to set up this Vite app to be able to build the web component. So we're going to build the web component. We're going to test it first just as a normal component, and then we're going to build it as a web component. And then finally, in step 3, we're going to create a brand new HTML file, and we're going to import it in, and we're going to check to see if it works. So we're going to basically create a brand new HTML file, and then we're going to import the web component in, and I'll show you guys how you can do that in a plain HTML file. So here are the steps. Like I said, you can jump around if you want to look inside timestamps at the bottom. So let's focus on the first part, that's to create this component. So there's quite a few pieces to this component. I went ahead and broke it up into 3 different components, kind of to show you how it works. And also, there are some caveats when you're using web components because they aren't like normal Vue components, so you can't do everything with them. And there's also some weird issues with styles that we'll talk about. So let's do this. We're going to create a new file. We're going to call it cointracker.vue. And then another file we're going to call coincheck.vue. And then finally, we're going to create a last file, and it's going to be arrowchecker.vue, because we kind of want an arrow to show if the value has been going up or down since the last time we checked the value. And I kind of want to look at this while I'm working. So in my script setup, let's go ahead and import that one in. We're going to import, we're going to call this coin tracker from And then it's in the components slash coin tracker.view. That's right. And if we did that right, we should be able to add it in. By the way, let me just move this. We know we're just move it at the bottom. But let's see if we can put it in here. And it's giving me an error right now because I have nothing inside the file. It's completely empty. So let's put something in here. We're gonna put scripts. I put lang equals ts and setup. And then I'm gonna put template. And for right now, we'll just do this is coin tracker. Just make sure it loads. If we did this right, and refresh, and we check one more time. Oh, you know what? It auto completed the wrong way. So it's coin tracker. There we go. This is a coin tracker. It's cool. So we've created our first component, but let's do some stuff with it. And I'll minimize this. So first, we want to create a way to connect to this backend to check our coins. And so for this one, we're going to use the open Coinbase API. It doesn't require any authentication or authorization or you don't have to send anything to it. So we can grab currencies really quickly. It probably has a rate limit. So if you were using this in production, you probably would want to sign up for accounts so that way you don't get rate limited. But it does work. So let's just start there. So we know that we want to connect to a URL. So we're going to connect to this URL. And when it is api.coinbase.com's v2/prices. And we're going to create some pairs. So essentially, we're going to show 2 or 3 coins right off the bat. And then we want to allow the user to show their own coins. So I'm going to pick 2 coins I want to show. And so I'm going to do a BTC. I'm going to call this BTC pair because you have to put it in this special format for this endpoint. And I'll do Ethereum pair. And yep, and so it'll be ETH USD. Cool. And then I want to hold this information in a reactive variable on our app and then be able to show it inside this coin tracker here. So since we're using reactive, I'm going to import reactive from Vue. So we're going to create a couple of them. So I'm going to do BTC. I'm going to call reactive. And right now it's just empty. And I'm going to do const ETH. And we're going to do reactive. And we'll leave this empty too. Now, since we're using TypeScript, let's be a good citizen and add types for this BTC and ETH. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of weird when we add. So if you do eth.test.5, you can see right away I'm getting a red squiggly line that says test doesn't exist because you defined it as this empty object. So let's do one called I don't know. We'll call it interface. We'll call it money format. We'll call it money format. And then we'll have 3 things in it. We want the formatted string. So we're going to hold inside of it like the actual string, what the money would look like in US dollars formatted. And then we're just going to have basically the raw number of the money, just the string, or the number of it, and then the name of it. So a little trick here is you can do as right here and basically you could tell TypeScript what it should be. That way it should work. And if we did this right, now if I do dot, I can actually do formatted money name and it's not going to give me any errors. Great. Now we did mention too that we wanted to be able to have a couple of props. So that way we can send in our own information. So I'm going to add those in. Now, what's really cool is since we're using define props here, it's like a macro. So we'd actually don't have to import it in. And format, I always have to remember how to enter this in. But define props, I'm going to do pair And it's just basically JavaScript here, or excuse me, TypeScript. And I'll do background, and that'll be string 2. So I want to be able to send the background and also the pair. And pair is going to be our own special pair right here, like this BTC pair, ETH pair. All right, we still haven't done anything different, but we're making progress. Now, what we need to do is find a way to grab the Bitcoin prices and display that for the user. So I'm going to create a new function here, async function. I'm gonna call it I'll call it grabPrices. And it's gonna take a pair, which is a string. And it's going to return a promise. And then we want to define what that promise is. And essentially, it's going to be the same thing as this money formatted name. So it's going to be this money format. So I'll do this money format. And now we just need to actually pass something back. So it hasn't returned anything yet. So let's do this. We're going to grab BTC info. And I'm going to wait. I'm going to fetch. And for here, we're going to grab the URL. And we're going to grab the pair. And then we can, according to the Coinbase API, we can actually look at the latest sell orders, the latest buy orders, but we're going to use one called spot, which is going to give us what the Bitcoin price is. So basically 1 Bitcoin equals how much in USD. And we're going to now grab the actual value of it. So now we need to tell, essentially we need to tell fetch that we want the JSON. We're going to grab the JSON out of it. And then we're going to return a big ol' object with everything we need. So first, we know we need to return money. Remember, we're trying to return something in this format, this money format. So we're going to parse float. It's going to come back with a floating value. It's a string, so we want to make sure it's in the right format. Data.amount. I don't know, maybe it is coming back in a number, and this is okay, but we'll do this anyways. And by the way, I just know from testing this in the past that you have to grab data, then amount, because it comes in an object that sort of looks like this. Let's see here. It looks like an object, and it has this data, and then inside that it has an amount like this. Sort of looks like that. So we just want to make sure we get the right one in there. So we got the money, and now we want formatted, and this is going to be a little different. We're going to use the international number format, which I haven't used that much. I had to look this up, but it's really nice to be able to format currency. So, but right here, it's formatted in this way, and then I still have one more. I let it autocorrect for me, but basically I'm just grabbing the money.data amount. It's going to format as a currency. And then the last one, we need a name. And I'm going to grab the pair. I'm going to split it. And then I'm going to grab the first one. Now, I don't have any error correction or anything here. Obviously, if I was doing this for real, I'd probably want that. But this should work. Okay, there it is. I just had one extra ending bracket. Cool. So we have this return right here. Good. Then this goes to this function, and then we have the ending script. So this should grab the prices if I did this correctly using this URL. And once again, this is just from the Coinbase docs. It's api.coinbase.v2, and then you send in this pair, and then you send in the spot. So if I want to test this out, I could do that. I just need to run grab prices and then pass in a pair, which I guess I can pass in. Let's do BTC to USD. And let's console log grab, and see if it works. So if I inspect right here, and I go into the console, and I refresh. Okay, there's a pending, so I'm gonna wait this. Oh wait. Okay, cool. So I see this object here. I see formatted, and I see the money, and I see the BTC. Awesome. So it looks like it's working correctly. But we actually need to set some values of this, and we want to be able to do it for multiple currencies. So probably we need something else that kind of formats the data in the way we want and be able to show it in our template. So I'm going to create a new function called setValues. It's not a very unique, it's not a very good name, but we'll just leave it like this. And I want to use or grab the data for each one of these. So I'm going to do BTC grab. I'll just do BTC value. And I'm going to do it from grab prices. And then I'm going to pass in that BTC pair. So essentially, I'm going to call this function grab prices. And I'm going to pass in this pair that I hard coded in here. And that should give me an object with this format, with format named string. And I want to do that one more time, but I'm going to do it with ETH value. And I'm going to send in the ETH pair. And now I want to, since I have this BTC value and ETH value, I want it to be reactive and to always update and to always change. So I did create 2 reactive variables to hold this information in, but I need to be able to do it one at a time. So I have BTC, but I have formatted money and name. There's probably a clever way I can do this through a loop, but I'm just going to do it manually. I'm going to do BTC.formatted equals BTC formatted here. And then I'm going to, well, you know what? It might be easier. I have an idea. We can do BTC equals reactive of this, and now it's mad because it's const, so I'm going to delete this, do let, and then I'm going to do the same thing here with this ETH equals reactive ETH value. Yeah, that sounds good. And now if that did everything right, I should be able to start displaying some of the stuff on my template. So in this coin tracker here, I'm going to create, let's do some HTML, CSS for a second. So a lot of people have been asking me like to do more like HTML, CSS in Vue instead of just focusing on the other stuff. So here's your chance to watch that if you're interested. Otherwise, make sure you can always fast forward if you like. But I want to show each of the 3 values here. So I'm just going to hard code this in and see if this works. ETH, I'm going to put a span, and I'm going to do ETH dot formatted, and then, I don't know, I'll do another span, ETH dot name, and actually we don't even need this. And I guess the third one and should be money. So if I did that right, and okay, so I found the issue. It loses reactivity because we're reassigning it right here, unfortunately, so it doesn't show up. But what we could do is a little more pain, and I'm sure there's another way we could do this, but this will be fine. I can just go to BTC and just assign it manually. So BTC.name equals BTC value.name, and BTC.money equals BTC value.money. And if I did that right, and I refresh it, I did it for BTC, but let me try it for ETH as well. Let's try BTC, actually. BTC. Okay, so here's all the amounts that's showing up as I expected. So once again, let's try ETH. ETH.money. Obviously, it's not working, so if we go back up here, we should do ETH.money equals BTC value.money. And now we have that. And so let's do 2 more. Name, formatted, name, formatted. Cool. So now we have everything here. If I put in 2 more of these for formatted and name. All right, so I'm getting all the information here. Now it is saying BTC twice, so that might be an issue. Let's see here. Let's see if there's a bug here. I'm going to comment this out. It says BTC. It should say ETH because that is defined right here. So ETH name. Oh, right here. This should be ETH. And this should be ETH. There we go. So now we're getting amounts in here, which is good. And that should be ETH. But obviously we want to have this look a little bit nicer than this. So let's go ahead and create, I want to take all this information displaying each one of these coins, and I want to put them in their own file. So let's go ahead and create a coin check file next. Before we jump into the next part, I want to do a little bit of cleanup here. And I want to add in a date as well. And I think what I kind of want to do here is, instead of having all this money here, and I'm going to have, I think I'm going to have a kind of a component here called coin check. And I want to be able to pass it in the coin and then pass in that reactive variable like BTC. So that way I can kind of put all this information on the coin check in one place and format exactly how I want. I also, inside here, right underneath this section, I want to create a new div. And I'm going to call this sub. And this is going to be just information on the last update. So every time we update, it's going to put in some information about the date. And so I'll go ahead and add in a date object. And yeah, I think that's it for now. So one thing I was thinking about is, to be able to have this run over and over again, I need to set an interval. So right now I'm all it's doing is running once. But if I can do this, it might be good to do a set interval. And then I'm going to set the values to run every, I don't know, 10 seconds. Well, we'll put it 10 seconds for now. So we'll turn that on in a second, but we'll have an interval that runs over and over again. That way people are able, you can see the values updating over and over again. Now I also want to add in this date. So I'm going to, right up here in some of my BTC ECH, I'm going to do, I guess I could put these back to consts. Doesn't hurt. And also this whole application will be up in GitHub that you can look at and follow along as well. So I'm going to create a date. I'm going to just make it empty for now. And I'm using ref, so I guess I got to import that in. Cool. And now I want to set the date. So every time it's done running its function, it'll have this date value. So let's write it right down here. Put date.value. And I'll do new date to string. And now it should have a date. And if I save it, cool. So it came up with a date right here, which we'll have at the bottom. Now I want to do a little bit of styling to make things look a little nicer. So first we have that subclass, and I suppose we'll do font size 14 pixels. I could use rems, but I'm just gonna use pixels just for this quick demo. We'll do weight, bold, display flex, justify content center, margin top 10 pixels. I think that's good there. And then I'm gonna do a section. And in the section, I display flex. I'm gonna justify content center and then align items, and I'll have that as center. We'll wrap it. If it overflows, font size 2.5 rem, margin 0 auto, gap 1 rem. And yeah, I think that'll be it for now. Changed it a little bit, but once we get information in here, it'll make more sense. So let's go to the coin check. So I'm going to do a script. Lang equals TS with the setup. Have my template down here, as always. And just to make sure this works, I'm going to import it into my coin tracker. So as we go along, we can check to see it. I'm going to import in coin check from coin check.view. And I think I messed this up. I want to rename this to coin dash check. Yes. Smart. I went ahead and did it right here. And then I can put this in this section right here. So coin check. Right now it doesn't show anything. And first thing we want to do is we wanted to make sure that we can pass in some props to this. So we're gonna create, let's see here. Yeah, we're gonna create props equals define props. And that's gonna be like this. And then the props we want to put in is that same, it's gonna be a little different. We're gonna have a coin that's passed in, and then it's gonna be that same number, that money format. We didn't export it, but I'll just type it again in here. String, and then name equals string. So now we can pass in a coin into it, and definitely has to be there. And we want to make sure that this is reactive, so we don't want to just go like this, because that means it'll lose reactivity, but there is something called toRefs, and this will guarantee that it returns a reactive object. And I wish it would work. Did it work? Cool. So it imported it in. And now we need to do something with the coin in the template here. So first, I thought it'd be fun to just try in some transitions. So if you're not familiar with Vue, has a whole animations, transitions library. We can do kind of have some fun with transitions and animations. So I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to put out in. So that's what it's going to do. I'm going to do inner class, and I have to put a key here, otherwise won't work. So that's a little quick tip. If you're using transitions, make sure you put a key on something so it knows where to transition. And we'll do coin.name here, and then we'll have another div which will call price info. And this price info will have a span, which we'll put in our coin.formatted. Formatted. If I spelled that right. And then let's save it here. So it's giving me a big red, probably because expects exactly one child or component. So this transition right here has multiple components, so we really need to make sure that we only have one around the inner. So I'm going to delete this, put it right here. Okay. So we obviously haven't added it in yet, but coin name, coin format. Now we want an arrow function, so in the future we'll make this arrow checker, and I want that to either show arrow up or an arrow down if the last price went up or down. So, but we'll add in a separate component for that. And then we obviously need some CSS, and I'll tell you later that you'll need to move some of the CSS around because web components behave kind of funny, but let's do this. I'm going to copy and paste this from another screen, but basically we're doing a transition of 0.5 ease, and it should kind of pop in and pop out. So in this coin tracker, we have this coin check, but we need to pass something in. So we're going to pass in the coin that we want, and let's do BTC. Cool, so there it is. So we have our BTC, we have 38,388.33. This looks good. Doesn't look quite the way we want it, but we're kind of getting there. This is also really zoomed in a lot. But we were able to get a price there. So let's add this in for both. Let's add this in for ETH as well. Okay, they're right next to each other, which is what I expect. Now, I kind of want to add in like some borders and something in this to make it look a little bit better. So in the coin check, I'm going to add in something in for this div right here, this inner div. So let's do that. So we'll do inner, and let's see here. We'll display flex, justify content center. Let's see here with this div. I wonder if we should put it in column. Let's see what that looks like. If we do here, okay, that's fine. But we also want to line item center. Okay, so that makes it look a little nicer. Now I kind of want to play around with giving it a border. So I'm going to put in a border, 1 pixel, solid black. Okay, that looks okay. And I want to give each one of these a width of 20%. Okay, that looks kind of weird because I'm zoomed in. But let's see if we can add a box shadow. Box shadow. I don't know, 0, 3 pixels, 10 pixels, RGB, GB, 0, 0, 0, and put a little bit of opacity. Okay, so now we got a little bit of opacity here. If I make this a little smaller, yeah, I like this. Okay, maybe add some padding too. So padding, I don't know, 10 pixels. Okay, I think that looks a little nicer. A little nicer on it. Now we want to add in, we have this, well, we do eventually want to add in a background to this, but we'll come back to that to change the background color. Okay, so this looks good. It doesn't change or update or anything. I also think it might be a little too big. But let's see next if we can add an arrow to show if it's going up or down. So we'll do that next. Okay, let's create this coin check. Now I want the coin check, this arrow checker, to be right here. So let's just jump in here. So once again, we'll do script length equals, let's see here, TS, and we'll just type TS. If I can do this right, let me try again. Script length equals TS setup. There we go. Template. And I'm gonna go back to this coin check. Let's import it in this one. Import in arrow checker from /arrow checker, and then we'll just put it in right here. Arrow checker. And we'll definitely need for this arrow checker for it to, well, it just needs to know the mount. So we're gonna have to send it some sort of amount, which we'll do here. So in here, we'll go ahead and start with the amount. So we'll do, once again, we'll do our define props. And then this is this. And remember, we'll close it. And so here we're going to assume we're just going to create an amount. Let's type number. And by the way, if you want to do it like this amount should still work without having to actually do props.amount. Let's see if that works. And what I want to do is we're going to either show up or show down. So I'm going to create a new reactive variable called show up, and it's going to use a ref, and it's going to be a boolean. So I'm going to set it to true, and I'll import it in. I don't know why it doesn't import quite in right, but once I save it, it'll be fine. So show up here. And then I'm going to show, like, I don't want the arrows to show up right away unless the money moves. So I'm going to create a new variable called show arrows. I'm going to put this to false. And I'm going to the show up value will equal if the props. Well, let's see here. We'll do it. Let's put props in here. I'm kind of going back and forth, but let's try this out first. Props.amount is greater than the last dot value. And you're probably thinking, where's this last dot value coming from? So here's a little trick. If you want to add in like a reactive variable, but you don't want it to be ran over and over again, there's a few ways to do this. This is one I like. So you can add a second script tag, lang equals ts, but don't add the setup in it. And I'm going to create in I'm going to import in ref from Vue, and then inside here I'm going to export. Well, we don't even need to export it. We can just do const // equals ref null, and then you don't have to actually import in both places. But now this last won't get ran over and over again. It just gets run once when it gets created, and we can kind of act like it's a reactive variable. So now, if I did this right, we could do greater than last dot value. Now it's giving me a warning here that it's possibly null. So we can do a couple of things here to alleviate that, but we'll leave that there for now. Let me think if I could do greater than. Yeah, let's leave that there for now, but we'll come back to it. If last dot value and props dot amount does not equal last dot value, which I misspelled, then in this case show arrows dot value was true. Okay, so I fixed it here. So what we should do is we'll just do an if statement. So if there is a last value, because it's going to start off with being 0. If last value, and if this will be falsy if it's 0, and the props amount doesn't equal last value, meaning that it hasn't changed at all, then we'll show the up value, which is going to be our SVG that we're going to add in to show up. And then our on mounted hook, what we're going to do is we're going to do last.value equals props.amount. So that way we have the mount saved. So what should happen is that every time we run this last will always be the last value. It'll start with 0, but then it'll increment up, and then we'll always have the new value every time it mounts. And it shouldn't get overwritten if all goes well. So now in the template, we can go ahead and add in our code here. So what we'll do is we'll start with the div, and we'll only want to show this if show arrows is true. And then if it is true, we're going to add in some SVGs. Now I'm going to copy and paste this because this is going to take forever for me to type out. But essentially these are the up arrow and down arrow SVG that I shamelessly grabbed from the internet. And I'm going to put the up arrow, I'm going to only show it if show up is true, and I'm going to put this class up. And I'm going to do the else, and I'm going to show the down arrow if the else is here. And I need to add in a little bit of SVG magic into my styles as well. So down here, I'll put in style. And I'll copy and paste some styles. So I'm doing a width of 30 pixels. Up should be green, down should be red. Cool. So obviously we are not displaying anything yet because we're not sending any props amounts. But let's see if this works. So now we should be able to pass in from our arrow checker an amount. And if we did this right, we'll have to bind it. So this should be coin dot money. Now we want to show in the money amount, not the formatted amount. And if we did that right, it's not going to show anything right this second because nothing's changed. But let's see if let's say VF true right here. True. Let's see what it looks like. Do we even have the arrow displaying? Oh, and the show arrows. Let's just do true here too. Okay, so we definitely have our arrow here. It's not where exactly I want it. We want it next to it, so we'll fix that. But at least we know that it will start working when we start sending multiple amounts to it. And so we kind of need to figure this price info. So I have this price info and I don't have any CSS for this. So let's add in some CSS for this price info. Let's do, I guess it would be right here. So we'll do price info. Price. I don't have this anywhere else, do I? Price. Nope. It's not prints. Price info. And I'm going to do a display flex here. And I'll put a gap of 1.2 rem. Okay, cool. So now we have the arrow here, and the down arrow should look the same, but it should be red. So we're making progress. Now I feel like since we have all the pieces in place for what we're doing here, this arrow checker, and we should be able to now set an interval so that way it updates continuously. So I'm going to set this interval here, and I'm going to set this to 5 seconds, and let's see what happens here. So the price is 38.39.52. Let's see here. This updates 11:55:20. 20 seconds. Okay, it updated 25. None of these values changed. So let's see if we wait another 5 seconds if anything's changing. Sometimes the BTC and ETH prices don't change too often from second to second. But one way we can get it to do it more often, just to test, is instead of doing the spot value, we'll do buy. Okay, so let's see here if any of these changes. It should be doing every 5 seconds. It should be grabbing some more information. Okay, cool. So it looks like it blinked there for both of them. So 599.71. It still shows up arrow. Let's see if we need to change these back to what they were. Okay, we'll refresh it again. Let's see here. Let's see if the show arrows works. So if it changed, the show arrows should update. Okay, so that did not work. Oh, you know what? Because I have a bug here. This is supposed to be show arrows dot value. There we go. Now it looks okay. So now we have our BTC. So 572.22. It's up from the last time. If this updates again in 5 seconds. Okay, I went ahead and found out my errors. So I made a quick change. So now I'm having a reactive variable here. But on the mounted, I create a new property called props.name with the amount. And what I do now is what was happening is this last was literally having both the Ethereum and the Bitcoin price, so it wasn't doing the comparison correctly. But now I'm always checking to see if the props.name, which is that I added a new prop called name. So now CoinCheck sends in the name as well. And now I do just a quick check to see, okay, is the amount coming in? Is it greater than this one? And then if that case, I show the up arrow. If not, then it'll show the down arrow. And then also I do this check to see that it doesn't, if it equals the same, that it doesn't try to do anything. But it does show the arrows. So, so if we refresh it, you can see here, first time it comes up, no arrows, but then 540.09. So it went down 527.55. So we know that it looked like it went down. That went down too. And then when it updates again in the next 5 seconds, looks like the value hasn't changed. But if we wait a second, okay, so this one went up. You could see here that you could see this went from 2651. So this went up a little bit. I'm also console logging it out. So yeah, so it looks like it's working now. It should be grabbing the latest values and showing the up arrow if it went down or up every 5 seconds. If we had more time, we could graph this out, but that's not what we're going to do here. So let's try to pass in our own value to see if that works. So if you remember, we have this name and string, this coin check. We do have this pair that we pass in, but we really didn't do anything with it. So we'll have to add in some code to get that work. And this is assuming that we want to pass in our own pair of values is what that is. So if we come back down here to here, this is, well, let's look here first. We have this BTC info, we have this grab prices, and right now this was just a test. We grabbed the BTC USD first to make sure it works. But in the set values, we can do something else here. So I'm going to put in at the bottom, delete these console logs, if props.pair. So if someone does pass something in, I want to grab in the pair value, which I'm going to await. I'm going to grab prices, and I'm going to pass in this props.pair, and I need to do await. And now we need some sort of some reactive variable that can hold these. And I'm just going to create a new one. Const called, we'll call it pass. Just like pass information in. Not a great name, but should work. And it's going to be reactive to, just like these, as money format. And now we should be able to do pass.formatted equals pair value.formatted. And once again, there's probably a better way to do this, but leave a comment below if you have a better way. If you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate it. That's awesome. And leave a comment right now if you're listening in and you've made it all the way through this, because that really helps me out. All right, so now I have this pass, and we should be able to pass that in as another coin check. But we're going to do it only if it exists. So only if they actually passed in a pair, then pass in this pass here. If we save it, nothing changes. However, if we go back to our app view, now we can pass in something right here, and we'll pass in, let's say, a pair, and we have to put it in this format, the same format we did right here, this BTC dash. So we'll put in, let's see here, Sol to USD. And there it is. Cool. Well, now it's grabbing the Sol value, which is 92.67, and it should update every 5 seconds and tell us if the value is going up or down or whatever it is. Great. So now we've done that. And one other thing I wanted to add in is this background. So we want to be able to change the background of the, essentially the background of this inner text here. So if we go to styles right here, we could try doing this. Since these are global, we haven't scoped them. We could just try background color vbind, and this is something new with Vue 3.2. You can actually vbind directly inside this, inside your style tag. So if I do this, nothing changed. But let's see here now if I pass in a background of yellow. And actually, I'm binding these, but I don't need to bind these. I can just go like this. And then I can just pass it in as a string. Cool, so that worked too, as we expected. Awesome, so now I think this coin tracker is good enough for right now. And I think at the next point, we'll just delete some of this comments out. I think the next time here, let's try to convert this to a web component and see if we can get it working in a different app. All right, so let's go ahead and create our web component. So we have this component here. It's updating every few seconds, tells us if the price is going up or down. It does this little animation, so it kind of disappears and comes back. To create our web component, we have to use something called this defineCustomElement. And I'll link to the official documentation. If you go to the Quick Start Guide and look up web components in the new Vue 3 official documentation, which by the way looks great, it tells you all about it. And if you look at here, building custom elements, it tells you need to use this defineCustomElement. And you need to basically can take a normal element and convert it over. And you can use props, which I'll show you guys in a second, and slots. Let's add a slot too. Let's do that. So in our coin tracker, we should be able to pass in values to the top and bottom of the template. So let's add that real quickly in. If we come back through here, we have a template. I'm going to add in a new slot, and I'll put the name as header, and then I'll have one at the bottom called footer. So that way people can kind of add their own information in, and I'll show you how it looks like using web components because it looks a little different. Cool. So now we need to create some sort of file here that will do what we need to do. So I'm going to create a source file, and I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call it, we'll call it webcomp.js. And so this file right here is going to be how we set up our web component. So let's close this. So I'm going to import a few things. I'm import that define component that we just looked at. And I'll try that again. Import define component from Vue. And now I want to actually import in the coin tracker. So I'm going to import in, I'm going to call it Vue coin tracker. And that'll make sense in a moment. And I'm going to grab it from components slash, and it's going to be coin-tracker. Perfect. And what I want to do is I want to allow people, when they use this web component, to use it a couple different ways. One, to use it, import it directly in, or just to run this register function. Just like we did with our plugins, you can have people install the plugin and have it all the plugins available, all the components available in it, or you can have people import in the components individually. We can do the same thing with this web component. So I'm going to import this coin tracker, and now I'm going to use this define custom element, and I'm going to pass in the Vue coin tracker. So that'll be available, but I'm also going to export this function called register, and it's going to just assume that you're going to have this coin, you want to name it coin tracker, but we'll let people override that if they want. And then we're going to use this custom elements define, and we're going to put the tag name and then coin tracker. So for all that work we've did to create everything, this is actually all we need, which is kind of fun, at least to set Vue up correctly in the right way. Now, one thing it recommends in the Vue documentation is to use this format.ce. So to opt into this, because there's a problem with styling, because it tries to inject the styles into the tags, the custom element, into the shadow root. So if you don't, if you have problems with styling, which you will, it's probably best to name it .c.e, and so that way it includes all the embedded inline CSS. It basically inlines all the CSS, so it should work correctly. So I want to go back into my components. Now I only want to do it to the root one, the coin tracker one, not the checker or check, because we're not going to use those. But I'm going to rename this to .ce.view. And it says, are you sure? Okay. And if you go back to your app at this point, you might, it may give you some issues because it's not going to work, but I'll show you here something. If you come back here and coin tracker, you can see it lost it lost a bunch of its styling. But that's okay because we're going to make sure it works correctly with our styles, and we might have to move some styles around. Okay, so we have this coin tracker. Now we have to redo this because this is wrong. It should be cointracker.ce. And now we want to see if we can try to build it. And I'll show you how to do that. So we'll go close this. We're going to our Vite config. And nice thing about Vite, just like with plugins, it has its own build system, and it works with web components too. So what we need to do is right under resolve, we'll add this build, and we'll add a lib, and inside this lib we'll have entry. This needs to point to the web comp that you just created. So that would be web.comp.js. If we did this right, should be. And then our formats, we can specify the formats. I usually like doing this. You don't have to. And then for the name, we're going to call it the Vue web comp. That's fine. And then file name, format. And this is where you're going to do this. Format equals ES. And then make index.js. Otherwise do index.cjs. And then a few other things to kind of help you when you're troubleshooting. I'll do source map equals true. I'll do target equals ES next, because we just assume we're in the latest browsers and everything should work. And then we'll do minify false. And I like doing this because it just helps me make sure I did everything correctly. And now we should be able to try to build it. So I'm going to open up console here, and I'm in the yarn in the wrong folder. So this should be the right one. I'm going to do npm run build and see what it does. Sweet. It looks like it created hopefully our web component. We might need to do a few changes to it, but it looks like it did. So we want to test this. So I went ahead and in another screen, I created a brand new empty VS Code with we're going to create an index file in here in this folder. So I'm going to create here, I'm going to call it index.html. And now we're going to, it always gives me ESLint error. I'm going to ignore that. And here it is. I'm going to call it my web comp checker. And I'm going to have one thing here, which if we look back here and we look inside here in our web comp, we called it coin-tracker. So let's do that. We'll call it coin tracker. Coin tracker. And now we're going to have a script tag here, but we need to import in this coin tracker to even check to make sure it works. So I actually happen to know where this other folder is. So I'm going to take everything from this dist folder. I'm going to do recursive star, and we're going to go down one and to this HTML test app, and we're just going to put it in its own dist folder, which I think exists. Let's see here. Let's make directory first. HTML test app dist. Okay. Now cp-r, everything in here to this HTML event test app dist folder. Okay. And now we'll go back over to this other screen. And here is our test. Now it looks like here we have all our test files. And now we can do this. So I'm going to put here this style, this script command, I'm going to type equals module. Otherwise, it won't be able to understand our imports. And now I can import in, well, I can import in coin tracker and then define it that way. But yeah, let's just import in our register right now. So we're importing in the register from .dist/index.js. And then we'll run the register. And if you look in dist index.js, what this is doing is it actually bundled up everything from Vue and the whole web component into one file. So if you look down here all the way at the bottom at this file, you should see here's the coin tracker and here's the register that we just did. So this file, by the way, if you noticed when we compiled it, it actually included Vue with it, so it kind of makes it a little bit big. If this was something you wanted to have it really small, so maybe you want to use like something like Petite Vue or something like that, because it does bundle Vue in. If you didn't want Vue bundled in, you can actually use the externals command and externalize Vue in your Vite config. I did that when I was creating plugins in my npm package, and then you would have to import Vue in manually. But in this case, we'll just assume we want Vue because Vue has to be in there, so it's already bundled in the index.js file. So that should be it. Now, the last thing you need to do is just run this as a web server. So I believe I've used Python in the past to do this. So this is going to create a simple HTTP server in Python on 5500. So let's see here. Let's see what it looks like. So we're going to do 5500. Okay, cool. It's there, but you can notice right away that we lost our look and feel because the styles aren't right. So that's kind of the caveat. It only grabs the styles from the root component. And yeah, you can see here the SVGs are all messed up and there's no styles. But we can fix that. So you might run into this too. So let's go back into our app view. And from there, we'll go into this coin tracker. And what I did to fix this problem is we have a couple of styles here, but we have a bunch of styles on each individual component, like this arrow checker here. For some reason, any embedded child components, the styles won't show up correctly. So you have to add all the styles to the web component itself. So I'm going to copy and paste this. I'm going to go back to my coin tracker, and I'm just going to add it to the bottom. And then, so we got the coin check ones. We got the coin arrow checker ones, but we don't have the coin check ones. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So this is a good idea to be careful with the naming of your styles so you don't accidentally overwrite each other. But I had all the styles global anyways, so okay. So now they should be added all in here if I did this right. So now my root web component has all the styles in it since it's going to ignore the styles from these. And now I'm going to build it again. So I'm going to go right here, npm run build. And this should automatically recreate all the files again. In my other VS Code, I'm just deleting the stuff in the dist folder. And I'm going to run that copy command again. Okay, so they're all back here again. So I'm going to run my Python server. And I'm going to do a hard reload. Cool. So now I have my styles again. So that is a big gotcha. Make sure that you put all the styles in the root of the web component, not in any of the subcomponents, otherwise they don't work. And we should be able to do a couple things here. First, remember how we can pass in our own coin? So let's try that here. So I'm going to pass in coin, and since we're not using Vue, you don't have to worry about doing binding. So I'll do coin here, and I'll do sol-USD, and I'll refresh it. And is that what I called it, coin? Let me double check. Go back to the coin tracker. Oh, I called it pair. Let's try that again. So if I come back over here and I look here, I call this pair. Refresh it. Cool. So now we have our Solana is showing up. And now we can also add in background too. So I'm going to put in background here. Let's type in yellow. And I'll refresh it. Cool. So now I've changed the style of it. And the last thing I want to show you is what if you wanted to add in those 2 slots. Now we don't, since we're using web components, we can't do like a template here and then put in vSlot. Like, doesn't work like that. We just put in, it's almost like, it kind of reminds me of like Vue 2 slot days. So I have the div here. I can add in slot and then the name of it. So I have a header. And then I'll put in here, hello world. And then if I do that correctly, cool. So it added in this to the top. I didn't have it centered or anything, but add this hello world. And I can also add a footer too. So once again, I'll do a div here. I'll put slot equals footer. And I'll put h3 footer. If I did that right, cool. So now I have a footer here and a hello world here. I was able to change the colors. And this is it's all self-contained web component. I can put this in a React app. I can put this in an Angular app. Obviously, this is a plain index.html. And all I did is register here. Cool. So I hope you guys learned something. This was a long video, but it's really neat what you can do with these web components. So let me know if you have any questions and leave a comment below. Thanks.